Profoundly affected by a discredited report, are waiting for more details when it comes to compensation from KPMG. On Friday, the chair of the auditing firm, Wiseman Nkuhlu, said that KPMG was planning to pay reparations to former SARS employees affected by the so-called rogue unit report. The report became public in 2015 and enforced claims that a SARS unit had been guilty of running a brothel and spying on then President Jacob Zuma. Executives were accused of knowing about, conducting or condoning the alleged illegal activities of the unit. Years later, KPMG in 2017 retracted the report's conclusions. It said the evidence did not support the findings that former Commissioner and now Minister Pravin Gordhan knew or ought to have known that the SARS unit was rogue in nature. KPMG also failed to pick up evidence of money laundering when it audited the accounts of Gupta-owned firms, and executives were later implicated in condoning fraud at VBS Bank. While Johan van Lochenberg was one of the leaders purged from SARS by former SARS Commissioner Tom Moyane on the basis of the rogue and other reports. He's welcomed KPMG's announcement, saying that the company has accepted unequivocally that the rogue report caused damage to people. Johan van Lochenberg, who is now a consultant and author, joins us. Johan, thank you very much. When did you hear about KPMG's plan to compensate?
Good evening, ma'am, and to the viewers, and thank you for the opportunity. I attended the online book launch and I heard it on Friday.
Okay, so you knew nothing about it before then?
No, not at all.
You clearly, we all presume, would be one of the people to be compensated. Do you think KPMG should speak to you and others before deciding what to do?
I can see no other way. I think one should just, in this age of disinformation, let's just be clear on what Professor Nkuhlu did say. There was an acknowledgement, which was unequivocal and emphatic, that the report by that grouping within KPMG constructed at the time did cause damage to human beings and to people and harm. So that is a fact. And then he also stated that there had been agreement and an undertaking given between KPMG and the South African Revenue Service with respect to KPMG contributing towards what he termed repair and this damage. What form that will take and exactly how, what that means, I can't tell you. I know as much as the rest of the public.
Yeah, and so you have no idea if you as an individual, for example, would be compensated and what you'd be looking at. No details like that whatsoever.
No, I must say I was quite surprised to hear the announcement in a sense, because I cannot see how the Revenue Service and KPMG can even discuss me and damages caused to me and my family or many others. I can understand if it relates purely to those people that have been caused damage that are still within their employ. But they certainly haven't spoken to me, and I'm just a phone call away. My number hasn't changed.
Well, you were the head of the high-risk investigations unit, which was fighting crime, focusing on higher-risk individuals, apparently. It then became known as the rogue unit. So that's a unit you were heading up. Explain how that affected your life and the lives of your colleagues at the time.
I should just say I managed 5 units, of which the high-risk investigations unit was the smallest. It consisted of 6 people at the time only. And all these units work together with each other. How it affected me, I've written a book about it. I find it very difficult to speak off the cuff about the trauma. The trauma remains. I also, I can give you in a general sense some ideas. Financially, most of us were crippled because of the legal costs, the fact that we were so publicly flayed open and humiliated falsely that we've had great difficulty in remaining economically active. But there also, the harm to family members, children, medical fees, treatment, people ending up in institutions, a couple of attempted suicides where people ended up in intensive care. The list is endless. I mean, it's the kind of damage that, it's not something I think would be proper for me to really go into detail in public. These are, they're just open wounds.
Yeah, we understand. And if your reputation is affected, that's very difficult for you and your family as well, especially if it's false claims. This entire report has been retracted now. Let's just go back for people who haven't read your book or followed the story blow by blow. Do you believe that you were targeted by the people providing information on the alleged rogue unit, some of which was used by KPMG? There was speculation in the years that followed that it may have been about the crackdown on illicit cigarette sales. You were involved in cigarette investigations. Tell us about, if you believe that, firstly, and about some of the other activities of the high-risk unit.
Yes. Look, I think the Revenue Service had become a significant threat to a number of role players in the political sphere, in the organized crime, groupings within the country, within business and other agencies, and the corrupt officials, and also the state capture gang. So I think, in a nutshell, there were multiple groupings that had been looking for an opportunity to weaken the institution.
Yeah.
What presented that opportunity happened to be a grouping of a couple of law enforcement officials, state intelligence operatives, people in the tobacco industry, and they launched the initial attack. And it was fairly underdeveloped. There was no mention of the unit at all. It was purely directed at me as individual. And towards the latter part of 2014, and particularly when Mr. Zuma, then president, announced the appointment of Mr. Tom Moyane as the then commissioner of the Revenue Service, 2 weeks later, the so-called rogue unit narrative commenced in the media. Yeah. And that continued for 2 years, and we were all muzzled. We were all completely unable to defend ourselves in the institution. And, ultimately, some of us just walked away and took on the fight in other ways.
I only have time for one more question, but you were effectively gotten rid of by the SARS commissioner at the time, Tom Moyane. Do you believe he was involved in state capture?
Yes, that's my answer. Yes. I think that the evidence is so clear, one only has to reflect on the findings of the Nugent Commission and the fact that it was never taken on review by him.
All right. We appreciate your time tonight. Former SARS executive, now consultant, Johan van Lochrenberg. Now, the